Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I'm Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a look at Indian Air Force's new weapon, the Rafale fighter jet. In September 2016, India inked a direct deal with French government to purchase 36 new Rafale fighter jets. Now, Rafale is a twin-engine canard delta-wing multi-role fighter aircraft designed and built by French firm Dassault Aviation. Indian Air Force will start getting the Rafale fighters in a flyaway condition from September 2019, and the induction of all 36 Rafale jets will be completed by April 2022. This is being seen as a big boost to the Indian Air Force, whose total fighter squadron strength has come down to 31 as against the sanctioned strength of 42 squadrons. As part of the Rafale deal, India will also get latest weapons like the Meteor and Scalp missiles, besides a support package which assures high availability of the fighter fleet as combat-worthy. In fact, Rafale will be India's most capable fighter aircraft to perform wide range of combat roles. Armed with the latest weapons, this fighter jet has a range of 780 to 1,055 kilometers and can make 5 sorties in 24 hours. So what are the unique characteristics of Rafale fighter jet, and how will it augment the strength of Indian Air Force further? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests today. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with retired Air Marshal Vinod Patni. He's the former Vice Chief of the Air Staff. And we have with us retired Air Vice Marshal P.K. Srivastava as well, former director of BDL, that's Bharat Dynamics Limited. And we also have with us from ORF, Pushan Das, Associate Fellow. Welcome all of you to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me straight away begin with you, Air Marshal Patni. Specific question is, all of us have heard about Rafale for quite some time now because of the elongated process of negotiations and all. But if you look at the characteristics of this fighter jet, can you explain to us and our viewers as to what are the significant characteristics of Rafale vis-a-vis its qualities and its capabilities also in terms of what it brings on table to Indian Air Force?
Well, you mentioned some of these just now, but where I would like to add is that it is a tried and tested aeroplane in use with the French Navy as well as the French Air Force. It has performed operationally rather well. Let me just give you one example as to its capabilities. The weight of the aircraft, just the aircraft body as such, is 10 tons. But the all-up weight is 24.5 tons, which means that it has the capability, the payload capacity is 2.5 times the weight, almost 2.5 times the weight. It is the highest anywhere in the world, including the transport aircraft that carries so many passengers. The load factor that is there for this aeroplane is the highest, and that is a specific requirement, and it's a specific characteristic which is naturally that much more important.
Okay.
It has 14 hardpoints. That means it has 14 spots on the aircraft where armament can be carried. Once again, about the best that is there. You know, you said it will be the best aircraft in our inventory. I will go one step further. It would be probably amongst the best aircraft in any inventory of any Air Force, at all. Maybe the Americans will say that the F-35 is better, but I would suggest to you that the maintenance issues on the F-35 are way far more severe. This is a good aeroplane. It's a good aeroplane, and it will meaningfully address our requirements. Let's see the radar. Let's see the weapon systems. Just a word on the weapon systems. I'll take just two. The Meteor. The Meteor air-to-air missile has got a range of something like 180 kilometers. But it has a no-escape range of 150 kilometers. That means if you launch a missile whilst heading towards the enemy aircraft, and if he is within that range of about 150 kilometers, there is no escape for him. It can do what it likes, but the missile will follow and kill. It's a tremendous amount. You mentioned the Scalp, but just a mere mention of the Scalp is not good enough. Take a look at what it can do. Scalp can hit a target at 300 kilometers distance with an accuracy of 3 meters. And the warhead is a good 1200 odd kilograms, which is rather, it's a heavy aeroplane, it's a 2-ton plus. You mentioned about 5 sorties a day. The reason is that the turnaround time is quick. The maintenance issues are streamlined. And if an aircraft can do 5 missions a day, it is very, very good, because our planning figures for most aircraft are 3 missions a day.
Okay.
You do 5 missions per day, now you are adding to the actual strength of your aeroplanes. If it is 3 missions per day and this is 5 missions per day, you need 30 aeroplanes instead of 50. That is the simple calculation. And it can be done. Even for ground attack systems, you can do a turnaround in something like 30, 40 minutes. Whereas if it's an air defense mission, you can do it in about 25 minutes. Now you see, that is the difference.
Okay.
Now, 5 missions a day is a planned figure. If I tell you that whatever is the duration of the mission, if the duration of the mission is short, then the number of missions that can do is very much higher.
The number of sorties can go higher as well.
Very much higher.
Okay.
Very much higher.
Okay.
So it has that advantage as well.
Okay. These are definitely interesting facts and figures which you are giving us about.
Just one more.
Yeah.
You said something about the radius of action of this aircraft. I think what we must recognize is that the radius of action of the Rafale will be something like 1.5 times that of the Sukhoi 30 that we have.
Yes.
1.5 times, which means that the reach has already been expanded. Take one more example. There are always limitations on aircraft as to what is the type of air-to-air refueling that you can do. Is it a drogue system or some other system, and the aircraft have got to be designed. This aeroplane can take any airfield, any air refueler. It has that capability, etc. It's beautiful. You have a system by which you can do infrared tracking and surveillance.
Exactly.
In other words, you are not letting the other person know that there is somebody on his tail or is trying to find him out. So look at the advantage.
So there are endless numbers of features, it looks like, and we'll come back to those some other features as well in terms of the technology it has, the way the future technology has been utilized. But let me bring in Air Vice Marshal Srivastava here, and on the issue which has been already pointed out by Air Marshal Patni, that is the maintenance issue and the comparison which he was making with the F-35 and the way Rafale as vis-a-vis its maintenance is concerned, and the kind of assurance which we have on this contract, wherein the French are saying, as per the contract, that they will ensure a 75% readiness of the fleet in terms of its combat operations and combat readiness. So how do you rate the maintenance part?
If you really ask me, I'll take off from his point. What he mentioned, the maintenance is very, very simple. When we say maintenance is simple, we mean, okay, it's modular. The maintenance is modular, it's a whole modularized concept. I'll give one example to bring the point home. Suppose I was to make an engine change, that Marshal will agree on a Su-30 kind of aircraft for that thing. Normally, I'll end up taking about 8 hours or something like that to finally give out the aircraft for ops capability. In this, I can do probably in just 30 minutes. That's a huge turnaround. When you talk about, see, when you mix in the engineering aspect of the aircraft, what they say, this aircraft is very beautiful in ops capability. The engineering capability is, can the engineering guys provide the aircraft to ops people in time? You are talking about 5 sorties per day, but that's probably the minimum we talk about. It can deliver more, depending on the mission duration, mission time, and kind of mission which is going. Few points which I'll add, which is probably you can swing the roles, which Chief also of the Indian Air Force mentioned once. The swing role capability of this aircraft is very, very good. So that's another big point.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, apart from the deal, about deal I think we'll talk a little later. We are talking about the engineering capabilities. Being a modular aircraft, being an aircraft from the kind of, some kind of infrastructure we already have for maintenance within the Indian Air Force. That means skill levels which we need to do, they can be augmented to attend to these aircraft. So we can quickly adapt this aircraft for ops role.
Okay.
Because you need the engineering support, infrastructure, and bases to provide the aircraft able for the combat role. I take one leaf from my own experience. In one of the conflict areas, I won't mention which one, I was the chief engineering officer. The basic thing we realized that can I provide the role equipment to the aircraft for its role in full capability so that the ops missions can take off. I think with this aircraft, that would be an easier proposition.
Okay, so that would be that would make it more easier.
So ease of maintenance is a huge point.
Okay.
Because unless you mix both of them, it really doesn't become a capable aircraft for the Indian Air Force to take on the missions which it's going to confront in this century.
Okay, let's bring in Pushan here from the ORF. And Pushan, with all those features which all of us heard now, and as Air Vice Marshal Srivastava also pointed out, the ease of maintenance as well, apart from its features and its characteristics, strategically, if you look at, what kind of heft does it give to the Indian Air Force and to the overall forces per se?
Look, I agree with both the Air Marshals that the Rafale is an extremely good aircraft. It's a competent aircraft. It increases India's striking capability, the kind of weapons that it carries. It expands the capability portfolio or the capability spectrum, so to speak, that the Indian Air Force has. But the questions to ask, I think, really are: does 36 suffice? If you do some basic math, how many of these aircraft are going to be there for conversion training? Let's say 5, 6, 7, 8. You cut out a few for maintenance. How many aircraft does India actually have operationally available? And at the end of the day, quantity has a quality of its own.
Okay.
Does 8 aircraft, if Indian Air Force has the capability to deploy aircraft on the Pakistani border, another 8 aircraft on the Chinese border, do these numbers really have the sort of strategic effect that you want to have? Probably not. So I think the questions to ask is, having spent this N number of $1 billion and having got 36 numbers, have we got the right amount of capability that the Indian Air Force required? Okay. So this is something which is a very interesting question, and I would like to bring in Air Marshal Patni on this. I guess definitely I would want to bring you only because 36, whether or not is it a sufficient number, is definitely a pertinent question. But the second one also, which Pushan pointed out, as to whether or not do we have enough sufficient, have we got enough amount of technology, enough amount of additional weapon systems as well, to the amount of money which we have spent.
Of course, we are getting many more, and that's where we are spending the money. 36 aircraft, is it adequate? My short answer is that 36 is better than 35, not as good as 37. But we would all want to have that much more. But can we produce the strategic effect? Most certainly. This aircraft can travel for 2,000 kilometers at will in terms of a ferry range. So it can operate in the morning on the western sector and in the afternoon in the eastern sector and get back again and do another mission in the western sector towards the evening. This is the value of air power. Air power can go from one place to another at will. It is not a slow-moving tank. It is not a slow-moving ship. It can change its theater of operations at will. And if the maintenance issues are looked after well, then in that particular case, it doesn't really matter where it operates from.
Absolutely.
And all these are characteristics of air power which unfortunately do not get the importance that they deserve. It is so. You have this aeroplane. Srivastava mentioned that it has got a swing wing capability, a swing roll capability, which really means it can do air-to-air and air-to-ground at the same time. It could also do, I think, a little bit of reconnaissance is there.
Yeah, it's there.
Yes.
It can take off from almost anywhere, operate under all circumstances. It can operate in the hills, in the deserts, in the plains, over different geographical areas. Most importantly, it can operate independent of any other support. In other words, if it wants to do a strike into enemy territory, it doesn't need a system by which you have some other aircraft providing a suppression of enemy air defenses. It can do it on its own. So it is a self-contained system. It is possible to argue that a greater capability like this is the sum total of a much larger number of somewhat inferior capability, but that would be incorrect. In the same way, as the quantity has a value of its own, quality, I think, has got a much greater value.
Okay.
And it is this quality that is so strong and so good that has to be taken by.
Okay. So
remember, strategic effect is possible.
Okay, strategic effect is possible, but let's move on to the next point, and quickly I'd like to bring in Air Vice President Srivastava as well, and you can connect that as well, Mr. Srivastava. You know, when we talk about strategic effects, and when we talk about, as you know, Air Marshal Patni was pointing out, if you also include the technological aspects which this plane has, for example, you know, the touchscreen simulation and the Spectra electronic warfare systems and all that. Does this also add more value to what Mr. Patni was pointing out in terms of its capability?
Of course, they are force multipliers. And what about the strategic effect? I'll just add, it can do nuclear missions. That's strategic. It has depth. It can carry the...
So it becomes part of the nuclear triad.
Connotation.
Okay, that has been purposely avoided.
Not discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, but it can do those missions. So that means it's fully mission capable. So there's one mission capability, but there is another launch capability. Can it be launched for all the missions? So the launch capability comes from the engineering infrastructure. And how fast the engineering infrastructure can be relocated as per the plans of the commanders.
Okay.
It can be relocated very fast. The kind of flexibility it gives you in relocation of the engineering infrastructure is probably a very important point to be noted.
Okay.
It doesn't get the importance it should get, because you don't have your capability unless you have the capability on ground.
Okay.
So on ground, you're hinged to a particular location. Here, as if the aircraft has a great range, it should have great mobility feature. That means if I want to launch it from place A, I'm willing to launch it, apart from 2 stations I have at the moment, catered for it. So it can do that.
Okay.
So that way it becomes very, very a good combo. If you really say, it's a very good combo of ops and engineering capabilities.
Okay.
And then also we must not forget, there is a life of the aircraft. Nation has paid for it. What all numbers are there. And they are going to stay there for not 2 decades, 3 decades. I guess they'll be there for 5 decades or so.
Okay. So strategic effects are there, Pushan. You know, your question has been in detail answered by both the guests. But to take it further, the way the numbers are right now, with 31 squadrons, as I was pointing out in the initial comments, in respect to 42, in fact, which are required, this will only add 2 more squadrons, 36. So when you say numbers are important, are you pointing to this lacuna here, that we are, you know, losing aircrafts at a greater pace than we are adding more?
Look, you know, this whole requirement of 42 squadrons or 45 squadrons is based on the Raksha Mantri's op directive, which asks the armed forces to be prepared for
front war.
2.5 front war,
2.5 front war,
so to speak. You know, we can question the whole premise of this op directive and say, you know, I mean, on what basis has this been made and everything else. But fact about, let's just presume that we have to be ready for 2.5 front war. The Air Force has stated that they need 42 squadrons to combat those threats. So yes, the numbers do matter. So if the Air Force requires 42 and they have 32 squadrons, and which is going to dip to below 30 in a few years, yes, the numbers do matter. Because at the end, while I agree with Air Marshal Patni that, you know, air power is not limited by geography. You know, today an aircraft could be flying in the Western Front and it could easily be redirected to the Eastern Front in a matter of hours. But the point is, given the vast geography of this country, it is also important to be able to base a sizable number of assets and have them readily available in their geographic locations.
At different locations. At
different locations. So the question is, given the current state of the exchequer, I don't think any of us on this panel have any hope that the defense budget is going to be significantly increased in the coming years. You know, the armed forces have made a, you know, their perspective planning has been done on the basis of 3%. But, you know, right now we're standing at below 1.5%, 1.4 something in terms of real budget minus pensions. Given the limited amount of money that will be available, can we afford to invest so and so, you know, 8 billion euros or so for 36 aircraft?
Okay.
Would it have been more prudent to buy something, let's say, of similar capability, but in larger numbers to meet up the squadron shortfall?
Okay. Okay. Air Marshal Patni?
Went through the entire process of 6 aircraft evaluation to say that this is the best bet for us. What further evaluation are you looking at? When the monies were scarce, we got 36. All right, we will deal with 36. It will give us some sort of a capability. Is the Air Force confident to be able to meet the threats that are upon us? I would suggest yes, from a defensive angle, most certainly. But if you are to talk about an offensive capability, then I think that offensive capability may require more numbers. After all, we can only do so much based on what we have. But your concept of a 3% of GDP defense budget, I think it's kite flying. Sorry for my using strong words like this. We say it's dropped below 1.5. Yes, we are all aware of it. And many of these numbers have been bandied about in any manner, many, many times. But may I suggest to you that over the years, although the percentage of GDP has gone down as we carry on, but the defense budget as a percentage of the total national kitty has remained around 11-12%. And now, whilst it is retaining around 11-12%, we have been able to increase it in real value terms over the years. What it implies is that if we ensure that it remains around 12% of total government spend, then I think if we increase our own GDP from 2 trillion to 5, this money will go up and we will continue along this process.
And we'll have more money to go ahead and invest.
We cannot say, it is not our problem. Government, give us more money, we will need more aeroplanes. Of course, we need more aeroplanes, but the government is ours. And that government also takes a look at our requirements and the requirements of a whole lot of other needs as well.
But I would say...
I got excited.
No, that's okay. This indeed is an exciting issue.
Nobody would disagree that, there's a requirement of numbers. And I don't think that Marshall at any time was suggesting that. The idea is what you have, is it strategic? So that was the first part of the question which he raised, which was being addressed. But the second part is numbers are required. Everybody knows numbers are required. Therefore, there's an RFI out, and we are looking for another 110 aircraft in very recent future. Idea coming to the budget issue. Now, I don't think budget would hold us really back. I don't think so. Because by the time we identify the kind of aircraft we have, the processes we have, and the kind of deliveries we have deliveries over a 10-year period. Even Chief has mentioned in one of his meetings, everything goes in time.
By the end of 15th
2040, we'll have the numbers coming in shape. So we are not talking about something which is going to happen next year or next to next year, and we don't need all the budgets right now on table. So it will be...
Has the government given you this perspective that this is going to be the spending in 15 years? Or is the Indian Air Force making this thing that we are presuming that this 12% will still be available to us in 10 years' time? And that time I will have this money to buy it.
Of course there's a perspective plan.
We have to be cognizant about the money that is available. We can't be presumptions about what money will be available in 15 years' time.
He's right, Pushan is correct. There is a perspective plan. We all know about LT, IPP or whatever it is called. But there is no commitment from the government.
See, there's no budget commitment at the moment. But we see as we move forward,
the commitment will also come.
And as he's talking about the GDP growing.
I'm not sure.
So the commitment has to be there before you can pick an aircraft.
I think.
The commitment has to be there for you to pick the aircraft.
So there are obviously, there are obviously two ways to look at things, and there are two perspectives to everything as well. But if you come back to the core issue that is, we started with, that is the fighter craft which we have on the table right now, Rafale, which will start getting the first one from September 2019. Now, we're just running short of time, but a quick concluding comments from all three of you as to how best can we use it and what does it hold for us in the future, as if you look at it from the future angle.
It's got tremendous capability, the Rafale has, and I think we'll leave it to the people in uniform to decide as to how to use it. We over here will be kite flying without enough information. So let them deal with it. We can only say this as interested bystanders, that it's a good aeroplane. We should get it. If we can get more, we should get more. Money is permitting. How to utilize it? Let's leave it to the men in uniform.
Let's leave it to the men who use it. Marshal Srivastava?
So I would say absolutely fine. And what we must do parallelly, again, is the purpose of the people who are currently in the blue, that we make it operational as quickly as we can, because all of us, and I'm sure all of those who are wearing uniform today, they all are doing and working towards it. So it's not that it's not going to happen. The engineering capability coupled engineering capability will come up very fast.
Okay.
I'm very sure.
Okay, Prashant, concluding comments from you. How to make the best use?
See, the best use is we need to pick a fighter, look at the cost-benefit matrix and see how many numbers we need, how much capabilities we get. You know, it's all about economies of scale. Today, we have got 36 Rafale aircraft. We need another 110 or similar category aircraft. The Navy needs another 57. The key is economies of scale. Which aircraft manufacturer is giving us the transfer of technology? How can we indigenize this? How can we build as many numbers? The more you build, the cheaper it gets.
Okay.
And that is what the government needs to focus on.
Okay, so everything will have to be taken in a holistic view here. And clearly, as our guests are pointing out, that as far as Rafale is concerned, it is one of the best combat aircrafts available here, and the Indian Air Force, with 36 of them, will definitely have a lot more heft to its power. We'll come back again next week with a different topic and a different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.